Hi, everyone, and welcome to the post-screening Q&A. My name is Hansen Bersic, and I will be moderating this session. I'm a part of the screening committee, and I am joined by Silvana Lázaro, who is the director of Canción de Invierno, or Wintersong. Thank you for joining us. I really loved your film.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be able to screen our film in your festival. I think it's like a pretty appropriate place for us to connect with the Latino community. That's definitely one of our main audiences.
Well, awesome. We're really happy to have you, and we're really happy to have your film. I guess, first of all, I loved your film, and I would love to start with talking a little bit about your inspiration for creating this piece.
I think that I would lie if I say this doesn't have to do with me and my personal stories. I think definitely I had a need kind of to project a little bit of the self process I had of healing a breakup. And I think that I also listened to the stories around me of my friends, and I kind of wanted to create a film where different elements that helped me to go through my breakup could be there, like friendship or like music, and traveling. That definitely was one of them. So I think that that was the starting point, kind of like just my own experiences, and I also kind of wanted to create a film about, I don't know, try to portray like a different female character. Like I think that was also like one of my main things, my main concerns, to kind of like have this female protagonist that kind of was a little bit outside the stereotypes or the way we see women portrayed in media.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. The main character was really interesting and fascinating, multifaceted. And she's kind of based off of you and your personal experiences. And what was your goal in portraying her, like in this way that you've described?
I think that, I don't know, just like seeing a woman that is a musician, for example, like that is playing a guitar and that kind of finds this empowering journey. I think that we see through the film how she starts playing certain kind of tunes till we see her in a guitar solo contest with an electric guitar. I don't know, I just kind of think we're not used to see those kind of things. And also the way that women live sexuality, I think is also pretty stereotyped pretty often. So I think that we wanted kind of like to show this character that lives all of these things in a different way, and that kind of lives this journey that also leads her to see different her ex-partner, for example, because she starts having this idealized version of him, and then she starts realizing all the things that she actually went through, that are all these little macho things that were pretty bad. So I think that in that was one of the main things. I think also with the other character, Alex, that she's also like a pretty different kind of woman that we see portrayed in a way that is pretty independent, that has a totally different style of life. So I think those, and also I think the relationship in between Danielle and Diego was pretty important. I think that in a lot of films, people would think that the film would be about they falling in love, for example. I think a lot of people would have that expectation at the beginning, because it's like a road trip and they go together, but it's actually they are friends, and like that's what they are sharing, that friendship and that respect, and they live very different kind of journeys, but at the end they are there to support each other. So I think that it's just I think that way of portraying like different female characters is in every single decision, even just the way that she was dressed, and or how she would move and all of those things. I think we were very careful with that.
Yeah, and I totally did have that expectation at the beginning, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I feel like there's a lot of films that don't take advantage of the power of friendship, and I was really pleasantly surprised with their relationship and the way that the film ended. I want to talk a little bit about this film as a youth film, because you describe it as a youth film. What do you think the message that your film has for, what do you think the message is that your film has for young people, specifically young people going through heartbreak, and people who are not straight, right?
Yeah, I think that definitely like the film kind of starts with this idea of this journey, And I think that what I kind of wanted to say is like, I think that a lot of times in these kind of movies, we see that the characters either end up together or they find someone else to replace what they used to be with.
Mm,
And I think kind of like what I wanted to say with this film is like, no, actually this part is about finding yourself. Like you
mm,
are never gonna be able to be with anyone else if you don't know who you are, and if you don't start like, yeah, like thinking about that. So I think that in that way, like the journey of Danielle, kind of she starts kind of feeling better when she meets this other person, and you think she's gonna be with her, or that the movie kind of suggests us at the beginning. Well, like when that relationship starts, but then she kind of realizes that she's kind of pretty similar to her ex-boyfriend in a way, and in the
mm,
way she
mm.
was treated. So I think at the end she decides to be by herself, even without Diego, that is her friend. So I think that the film kind of ends in this in her deciding to live her own journey and figuring who she is, who she wants to be, and kind of like remembering all of these things that happened in the past, because she comes back to this same spot, and thinking kind of like, I'm no longer there, but I had to be there at some point to kind of like figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely I wanted to create a film, especially for women, in the way that I think we are definitely being taught that we have to be in a relationship, that we have to find a boyfriend,
Right.
that's what's gonna get us through. But I kind of wanted to have a different message. At the end, the movie is not really about love; it's more about that journey. And I think that like all of those little things you start to realize when you stop being a teenager and start adulthood are all of those things that I kind of feel our youth. I kind of feel that all of those moments and the music and kind of like all these very deep experiences really mark us and and imprint us with something. So I kind of think that that is kind of like one of the main goals. And also, I mean, kind of like the journey of Diego, that he has a kind of like, he's also in a breakup, but he has a different like way of living through it. It was
Mm,
also by getting out of his context and being able to realize other perspectives and kind of like see that he was probably kind of like around the loop of his own circumstances. And I think that for him it was pretty important to see other types of life and get to know this context in the border that is so different from what we live in Mexico City. So I
mm,
think that yeah, I think that that is in an abstract way about youth, but all in all, like I think that when I filmed this movie, I was 23 and now I'm 27. That may not be a big difference, but to me it feels so different. And I think
mm.
that yeah, so that's, I think that kind of like thinking about that film and thinking about what I was going through when I was 23, all of these things kind of remind me of who I was, and kind of like were the stage for me to think who I wanted to be and who I wanted to become.
Right. Wow, that's really awesome. And I actually really did want to talk about the music because I thought it was such an amazing part of this film and the way that you utilize music in this like kind of road trip experience, you know, and processing was really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the music and how you decided on the music that you were going to incorporate? Because there's various styles and there's different feelings. I'd love to hear more about that process.
Yeah, I think that since I wrote the movie, I play pretty loud heartbreak songs and things like that. So
Mhm.
I think from the script it was there, and I think that kind of like the idea of the music is that it would also develop with the characters and with the dramatic things that they are going through. And each character kind of has their own style of music that also kind of like gives different textures to the moment. For example, like it starts with this acoustic guitar, but
Mhm.
then when Danielle gets to meet Alex, she kind of like is more like experimental music, electronic, and it gets these other textures, gets other vibe. Like the camera even feels different. So from a very early on version of the script, I contacted Mateo Sanchez Galan, that is a musician that did the music with me, and we started working on it because we needed kind of like to create a few songs that they sing live, so we needed them before the film. And we started working on kind of like defining the styles of each of them, because for example they start also playing this kind of like indie like music, but when they arrive to the border they realize that no one cares about the music, and they had to kind of like change the style and play more like Selena or other kind of like cumbia like things that the people are more interested in, those kind of bars. And I think that all of these changes deeply affect Danielle and Diego in their own journeys. And and yeah, like till it explodes, kind of like in that solo guitar part of the film where it's pretty cathartic and it's like a totally different texture of what it is there. So yeah, like I think we were very careful on defining the styles of each one of them. Like for example, Bruno has like is more rock star like, and so yeah, like that it was honestly kind of like awesome. It was a pretty hard process. Like it took us a while because then we finished them over post production, and like from I think we have like around 13 songs or 14 songs,
Right.
and from those songs we made around 10. Like we were all made by us, and it was also like a good experience for me in the way that I mean I love music, and I got to try writing the lyrics and things that I had never done in my life. And Mateo was such a great work partner. Like he was so good at, like he's so talented and he's so young. So I think that we worked pretty hard also in post production to finish it and kind of like adapt it also with the edition, like set it on the right cuts and the timing. And then when we mixed it, it's actually sad you guys won't be able to watch this in the theater because when we mixed it, we moved the sounds around. So if you watch it in the theater, they like, for example, these moments were more like on Alex and Danielle, like we moved a lot of the textures and a lot of the sounds they go around the theater. So we were also pretty careful about kind of like taking care of that aspect of the film. So yeah, I think that all in all, music could be even a character of the film. Is one of the main three elements, and it definitely develops in a dramatic way during the film. And yeah, we managed to have very different types of music, but I think that all in all, the music like has a personality, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And you know, it's not just the music, but the sound design in general that you take a lot of risks and experiment with in a lot of ways. And I think it really paid off, you know, various times when they're talking and it's not in sync, or, you know, different narrations that you bring in. And I think it really adds to this kind of feeling that you're trying to present in the film. But it's not actually just the sound design. You also do a lot of experimental work within the cinematography as well. I want to talk a little bit about this because I think one of the most interesting parts for me when I was watching this film was those moments when the frame rate dropped and it was kind of very stop motion-esque in these very intense moments, very emotional moments. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process and what you wanted to achieve with creating this effect?
Yeah, I think that definitely what helped us make those decisions was kind of like thinking that the camera and the sound were gonna act depending on how Danielle was feeling. Like I think they reacted towards how Danielle was feeling, and also kind of like creating this idea that it was kind of like a memory, like, because I think that sometimes when we think about the things we've lived, we don't really remember them exactly as they happened. It's more how we felt them. So I think that a lot of sequences, I mean, there's something narrative going on, but are more about what she is feeling and how she kind of even gets out of herself and sees her interacting with Alex, for example. And so yeah, I think that it definitely had to do with that, like this emotion that she had, like that she was feeling pretty intensely. And I think that I also kind of wanted a film that I think through creating that kind of visual language can make other people relate to their own moments. Like I think people kind of start thinking about the way they feel in that way. They saw things in slow motion or things were just flashing around in front of you. So I think, I mean, also we were experimenting, honestly. This is a student film. It's our thesis to graduate from school. So I think that it was also, we wanted to try different things. I'm a huge Wong Kar-wai fan, and he keeps doing this. He plays a lot with frame rate, for example, and color and things like that. So I think we're definitely trying to prove different things and see what could work. And I think also it had to do with the fact that I think that the movie has kind of like also documentary-like part. Like we kind of wanted the camera to feel pretty free in the spaces. Like they are pretty long shots, most of them. We do a few cuts mostly when there's a lot of music, but mostly it's pretty long shots. And kind of like we wanted the camera to feel kind of fresh and kind of like that it was discovering these spaces as the characters were discovering this side of the country. So I think that definitely it was never thought as a, it was always thought thinking about the characters and what they were going through. And from that point, we would make decisions. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it definitely came across, and it was really interesting and fascinating. And I definitely noticed all the long shots and spending your time and taking your time and this kind of flow that you created in the edit, which I really did appreciate. The next question I have for you is about the location. So, and I didn't actually know this was a student thesis, so congratulations, it's really impressive. The town, this border town that you chose to be like kind of the primary location. I'm wondering, did you find this town in the process of filmmaking, or was it a town you already knew? And what was this process of finding this amazing location?
Yeah, like everything, like I wrote like the first draft of the script, kind of thinking about a border city, but I had been in Tijuana before, but I hadn't spent like like a long time there. So my best friend and I, that she's a producer of this film, Diana Mata, we decided to do that trip. So we went there and started seeing the context of the border and started finding these amazing places. And I like, we totally completely fell in love with them. And so we started looking for the locations that I had already written in the story in the first draft. But from seeing these spaces, I regret the script. So
Wow.
then I regretted thinking about them. It actually, I like kind of that they feel like they're just there, but like we took a lot of time into finding them. We drove to the most random places, and like they are. I mean, we filmed from like Tijuana and Ensenada and a place called Valle de Endira that it's all in the border. They're a little bit spaced out in between. They are not like so close to themselves,
Right.
but we kind of wanted to feel like, to give the impression of what it feels to be in Baja California, that is all these different types of like landscapes and that go from very different types of feelings. So we were pretty careful on how to choose them and how to put them in the film and decide which sequence should be there so that they kind of match what they are going through. But definitely there were a few places that we did find through filming that we didn't had in mind before, but most of them we did that trip, and then we came back with our cinematographer, with Sheila Altamirano, and with her we also kept looking for locations. And so we did two very long trips to Baja California to find them. It was honestly awesome. And yeah, like it took us a while. It was a pretty crazy journey, honestly, but I think we managed to find the right places. Yeah.
Yeah. And was one of the places that you found the location that was the rocky hills on that beautiful stretch of road? Was that one of the locations that you found, or was that a location that you planned for from the beginning?
It's a location that definitely, when we drive through, it's a highway that is called La Rumorosa. That definitely the first time we drove through, we felt like super impressed by it. It's such an
Right.
amazing place. So I remember telling Diana, like, we have to film here. So we had written that they drive through, but definitely it was not gonna be such a fundamental part of film, because all in all, it is where they have this very deep conversation about kind of like what the film is about. So I remember that we were driving to film there because we kind of just wanted them to be together in, like, we kind of just wanted to make like a landscape shot with them. And through we were driving there, I wrote this lines that they end up saying there. And when they sat like at the edge of the kind of like, I don't know, like a rocky mountain that it is.
Right. Yeah.
I told the actors that if they could say those lines, and then when we started filming, we felt that something was going on there, so we kept going, and that's a sequence that was not really written in the script that we found
Wow.
there. And honestly, I think it really has to do with um, this kind of like magic that you sometimes feel doing film, like
Mm,
when you sometimes, I don't know, like I think that we did this with a very small crew. When we filmed all the part in Baja California, we were barely 10 people, including actors. And I think that was so hard, but it also allowed us to have a lot of freedom over what we wanted to do.
Right.
So we could decide things like that. We could decide, yes, we are not gonna do the other location today. We're gonna stay here because where we are seeing and where we're feeling it's awesome. So I think that definitely that taught us a lot and that we wanna keep filming, because sometimes when you go through a more industrial process, you don't get to have those chances. You go very fast and you don't really get to be there. But I kind of think that for all of us, for all the crew and the actors being there, kind of we shared the vibe of the place. I know it sounds super hippie, but I swear it was like a very intense feeling that we were all like being part of. And when we were editing, just that part of the film really felt right, that it changed the ending. The ending was not there, but we liked it so much that we felt like she has to go back to that moment because that moment of the film is so important.
Mm. Wow, that's so magic. I'm so glad you had that experience. I think that I mean, it really was one of the highlights for me of the film, and one of the moments I remember remembered the most. Um, and yeah, so you're super young filmmaker. What is next for you? Do you have another project that you have in the works that you can talk about?
Well, I mean, we're right now working on a short documentary. I don't know if I can tell much about it right now because people
That's
get
okay.
very secrecy about the projects. But no, I mean, yeah, we're actually gonna we're gonna try to film a project also in the U.S. Next year. Hopefully that'll go through. It's also related with migration, but it is not on that border. It's on the other border of the U.S. With Canada, so it's a totally different context.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know. I don't know what is really that has taken me to these places, honestly,
Mm,
because a lot of this has been. It just I don't know. It just happened that I started to have this very deep interest in this kind of issues. But yeah, we're working on some documentaries. It's pretty awesome because Diana Mata is like the person I started doing film since we were in high school, and
oh,
so
wow.
this is gonna be our kind of like our first project out of school. And it's
Exciting.
cool to keep filming with the people that you love and the people that you grew up with and that you started this process. It's definitely
Wow.
challenging to be a Latino woman in this industry,
Mhm.
and it's definitely challenging to be able to find your own voice in the middle of also trying to live out of what we do.
Right.
Um, so all of that has been hard, but we are trying to navigate it and yeah, like I think it's also important that I kind of think that something that I value a lot of this film is that yeah, it was made by people that were that age. And I think
Mm.
that it kind of has that vibe to me. I don't know. Like seeing it, I really feel like, yeah, that's how we were feeling when we were all that age. Like the cinematographer, all of us, we were below 25, I think.
Wow. So I didn't even have this question planned, but I think it's really important. What advice would you give to other filmmakers like you, and people who are interested in getting into the industry who, are Latina and women?
Oof, I think it's rough. I think that something I've realized is that it's pretty important to focus on your own process as a human being. I think that sometimes when we're in film school or just simply wanting to be part of this, we think about just creating and doing stuff and kind of like being in festivals and things like that. But I think it's pretty important to be honest to what we are going through and connect deeper to those processes, because I think from that point of view is from where we're going to be able to share something different and where we're going to be able to actually bring out, yeah, like all of this part of our context that we can share. I think that definitely something that's been pretty beautiful to me as a female filmmaker is to find other female filmmakers that were very kind to me and kind of like guide me through and are women that I totally admire. And I think that I found a lot of sorority inside the industry and between women. And I think that it's been so great also to be able to discuss things and process a lot of the feelings we've had together. So I think that reaching out the women you admire is cool. And like it's, at least for me, I was pretty nervous honestly about reaching out to other filmmakers that I admire. But they were so kind. And like I think that also I think also watching films that are made by women and by Latinos is important, because I think that we definitely grew up with a lot of imposition, a cultural imposition, so that we start wanting to do other things because we grew up with that ideology. So I think it's important also to see what other types of filmmakers have been doing that are not just white men, to be able to see how can we express our own voices. But yeah, I think definitely creating that sorority in between female filmmakers is huge, and it's super important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that advice, and thank you for sharing this wonderful film with us. How can people find you? If they're a fan of your work, how can people keep up with you?
They can find us in social media. We have the social media of the film, that is, I think, Canción de Invierno dash the film dash film. Jeez, I forgot. But if you look Canción de Invierno film, I'm pretty sure that would appear on Instagram. Or they can also look for me from Silvana Lázaro on Instagram, and there I also have tagged the Instagram of the film. Yeah, I think we pay a lot of attention to our social media because it's definitely where we've been contacted by a lot of young filmmakers, and that's been actually great. I think that definitely social media has helped us to be able to connect when it's kind of it would have been complicated without it, I think, to find the audience and kind of like connect. But yeah, definitely through social media, you could find me as Silvana Lázaro.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there
thank you so much.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, or?
No, I think that it's just I think it's amazing to keep creating the spaces where Latino voices are heard, for that find the Latino audience. I think that there's definitely a huge struggle in so many ways, and on rechanging the way we see ourselves, and like breaking the stereotypes and pushing the boundaries of all of these themes and issues, that I think this kind of festivals are awesome. So thank you so much for having us, and hope that one day we can have more in-person films, because there's definitely a part of experience that is lost through that. But no, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.